Have you ever found yourself holding on to someone God was trying to remove from your life? Sometimes we don't understand why certain relationships fall apart, why friends turn their backs on us, or why people we trusted suddenly walk away. But let me remind you of this truth: God never subtracts without the purpose of multiplying. We serve a God who sees beyond what we can see. He knows the weight we're carrying, the pain we're enduring, and the people who are more of a hindrance than a help in our journey. And because He loves us, He sometimes removes the wrong people, not to punish us. Have you ever found yourself holding on to someone God was trying to remove from your life? Sometimes we don't understand why certain relationships fall apart, why friends turn their backs on us, or why people we trusted suddenly walk away. But let me remind you of this truth: God never subtracts without the purpose of multiplying. We serve a God who sees beyond what we can see. He knows the weight we're carrying, the pain we're enduring, and the people who are more of a hindrance than a help in our journey. And because He loves us, He sometimes removes the wrong people, not to punish us, but to prepare us. Today, I want to encourage you: trust God's divine pruning. What He takes away, He replaces with something better. What He closes, He follows with an open door. If God is removing someone from your life, it's because He has something greater in store. So let's dive into this message with open hearts and trust that when God removes, He also restores. Amen. God removes people from our lives because He sees what we cannot. There are moments when we are deeply attached to relationships, friendships, or connections that seem good on the surface, but are actually holding us back from the greater purpose He has for us. We may not recognize it at the time, but some people are distractions or even dangers to our journey. They might not have bad intentions, but their presence in our lives can hinder our spiritual, emotional, and personal growth. Sometimes we mistake comfort for purpose. We hold on to people simply because they have been with us for a long time. We assume that history equals destiny. But God operates beyond what we see in the natural. He knows the hearts of those around us, and He understands how their influence can shape our thoughts, decisions, and future. There are people who secretly envy you, who do not genuinely celebrate your success, and who speak doubt over your dreams instead of encouragement. These relationships might not always be toxic in an obvious way, but they can still be harmful to the calling God has placed on your life. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that not everyone is meant to stay. We struggle with letting go because we don't see the bigger picture. When a friendship or relationship ends, we often try to hold on, fix it, or question why it happened. But God, in His wisdom, allows certain people to exit because their presence is no longer beneficial for where He is taking us. If we try to force someone to stay when God is trying to remove them, we end up delaying our blessings. We may even experience unnecessary heartache simply because we refused to trust His plan. God removes distractions not to punish us, but to protect us. He sees the betrayals we don't see coming. He knows the conversations that happen behind closed doors. He understands the influence someone has over our thinking and decisions, and He knows when it is time to intervene. Sometimes the greatest act of love God shows us is closing a door we were too afraid to close ourselves. It may hurt in the moment, but His plans are always for our good. When someone walks away, we must trust that it is for a reason. God does not allow separation without a purpose. He is guiding us, shaping us, and preparing us for something better. It may feel like rejection, but is actually divine redirection. He is not taking something away to leave us empty. He is making room for something greater. When we surrender our relationships to God, we can walk in peace knowing that the people meant to be in our lives will stay, and those who are not meant to be there will leave at the right time. Trust his process, because what he removes, he replaces with something far better than we ever imagined. In life, we all go through seasons of change where things, opportunities, or people are removed from our lives. At first, it may feel painful, confusing, and even unfair. We may wonder why things are shifting or why God is allowing certain relationships to end. But when we trust his plan, we begin to understand that what feels like loss is often divine alignment. God prunes our lives, not to hurt us, but to prepare us for something greater. Pruning is a process that happens in nature to help plants grow stronger and bear more fruit. A gardener cuts off branches that are no longer useful or healthy so that the plant can thrive. If left untrimmed, dead or overgrown branches can actually drain energy from the plant, preventing it from reaching its full potential. In the same way, God removes what no longer serves us. It may be a friendship that no longer aligns with our values, a relationship that distracts us from our purpose, or even an opportunity that seemed good but was not truly meant for us. When we don't understand the pruning process, we may resist it. We hold on to things that God is trying to remove, thinking we know better. We beg for people to stay when their season in our lives is over. We mourn what we lost instead of rejoicing over what God is making room for. But just like a plant cannot prune itself, we must trust that God, as the master gardener, knows exactly what needs to be removed. He sees what is ahead and knows what is necessary for our growth. One of the biggest mistakes we make is viewing loss as punishment. We assume that when something is taken away, we have done something wrong or that God is against us. But in reality, pruning is proof of growth. God only prunes what he intends to use. If he is cutting things away, it means he is preparing you for a greater purpose. The relationships, habits, or opportunities that once seemed essential may no longer fit the version of you that God is shaping. And though it may be painful, his plan is always better than anything we could imagine. The key to walking through the pruning process with faith is surrender. Instead of fighting to hold on, we must release what God is removing and trust that he knows best. Instead of focusing on what we lost, we should focus on what is ahead. When we surrender to his will, we begin to see that every loss was actually a gain in disguise. God is aligning us with his purpose, clearing away distractions, and making space for the blessings that are coming. What seems like an ending is often a new beginning. Trust the pruning process because God is always working for your good. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that not everyone is meant to stay. We form deep connections with people, invest our time, and build relationships that we hope will last forever. But as we grow, as our purpose unfolds, and as God shapes our journey, some people naturally drift away or are intentionally removed from our lives. It can be painful, but it is necessary. Some relationships are Rejection is one of the most painful experiences we can go through, whether it's a friend who suddenly distances themselves, a relationship that ends unexpectedly, or an opportunity that slips through our fingers. It's easy to take rejection personally. We wonder what we did wrong, why we weren't good enough, or why things didn't work out the way we had hoped. But what if rejection isn't a setback? What if it's actually God's way of redirecting us towards something better? God sees the entire picture of our lives while we only see a small part. When someone walks away, we often think it's a loss, but in reality, it's God leading us forward. Sometimes we are so focused on what we think is right for us that we miss what God is trying to do. He knows when a person, job, or situation is no longer serving our purpose. He knows when something is holding us back, even if we can't see it ourselves. And because he loves us, he allows rejection to happen, not to hurt us, but to guide us. Think about a closed door. When one closes, our natural instinct is to knock harder, to beg for it to reopen, or to stand there feeling defeated. But what we don't realize is that God isn't just closing a door, He's also opening another one. He is shifting our direction, protecting us from something we don't even know about, and preparing us for something greater. What we see as rejection, He sees as divine intervention. The Bible is full of stories where rejection led to something greater. Joseph was rejected by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. But what seemed like a series of painful losses was actually God redirecting him to a position of power in Egypt, where he would later save an entire nation. If Joseph had not been rejected, he never would have stepped into his true calling. Jesus himself was rejected, he was mocked, betrayed, and abandoned, yet his rejection led to the greatest victory of all, salvation for the world. If even Jesus faced rejection for a greater purpose, we should not be surprised when we experience the same. The rejection you are facing today is not a punishment. It is God removing what is not meant for you so he can make space for something better. Instead of seeing rejection as failure, start seeing it as redirection. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, God, where are you leading me next? Every closed door is a step closer to the right one. Every person who walks away is making room for the right people to enter. God is not trying to break you. He is positioning you for something far beyond what you could imagine. Trust the process, because where God is leading you is far greater than what you are leaving behind. Think about a child holding on to a small toy, refusing to let go. The parent, knowing they have something far better to give, gently removes it from the child's hands. At first, the child may cry, feeling like they lost something precious. But moments later, the parent hands them a gift far greater than what they were clinging to. This is exactly how God works in our lives. We hold on to things, people, jobs, plans, thinking they are the best for us. But when God takes something away, it's because he's preparing something greater. The Bible reminds us of this truth over and over. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. God's plan is never to leave us empty. He removes what no longer serves his purpose in our lives so he can fill that space with something even better. Abraham had to let go of his homeland before God led him to the promised land. Ruth had to leave behind her past before she stepped into a future filled with redemption. Job lost everything, yet God restored him with even more than he had before. Every story of loss in the Bible is followed by a greater blessing, because that's how God works. If you're in a season where it feels like God is taking things away, don't lose faith. He is not punishing you. He is positioning you. What feels like the end is often the beginning of something greater. When you trust that his plan is better, you can release what's leaving and prepare for what's coming. His ways are higher, his timing is perfect, and his blessings are greater than anything we could plan for ourselves. What he removes, he replaces with something better. Trust him. Life is a journey of seasons, and not everyone or everything is meant to stay with us forever. When God removes someone from your life, it's not a loss. It's a step toward something greater. He sees what we cannot, and He removes people, opportunities, and distractions that could hold us back from the destiny He has prepared for us. Rejection, loss, and change can be painful, but they are also necessary. What feels like an ending is often a new beginning. When someone walks away, when a door closes, or when a plan falls apart, trust that God is making space for something better. His pruning is never to harm you, but to position you for greater blessings.